Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Saturday edition video, where today we're going to be looking at the Tier 7 Soviet Premium Destroyer, the Leningrad. And yesterday we did have a video that featured this entire build that I'm about to show you. We're going to look at the armor, we're going to talk about the playstyle of the ship, look at the upgrades, modules, and of course the commander skills. And I have probably 3 different options there I might recommend to you. But more of the 2 that I'm thinking. So, what type of ship is this destroyer? Well, the Russian destroyers are pretty known for being more gunboat leaning. Now you do have the other line. There's 2 Russian destroyer lines, the tech trees, and even though this is premium, well, we have one that's much more a gunboat line, another that's a more hybrid line. This destroyer is a gunboat, but she's kind of if you can build her to be a hybrid that leans towards a gunboat, or you can build her purely as a gunboat, and I think either of those 2 options is fine. And when you say hybrid that leans towards gunboat, you have 3 types of destroyers. You have torpedo destroyers, gunboat destroyers, and hybrids, which is a mix of both worlds, but this would be like in between. Hybrid gunboat is about the best you could get it in terms of being a hybrid destroyer. But you can make her a full-on gunboat build. I'll talk about that build here in just a moment. Now, in terms of her armor layout, pretty standard for a Tier 7 destroyer. She's coated with 16mm and then 10mm here on the superstructure. Of course, armor schemes change, especially among the Russian destroyers as you go up the higher tiers. You know, for example, premium destroyer, the Khabarovsk used to be tech tree, but now it's premium, replaced by Delny. Also, just a short mention, if you go for the full conceal build, which I've done for now I'm going to talk about that, so bear with me if you're like, oh, Leningrad conceal build, what's up with this? Okay, 1, you can watch yesterday's video and see how it did come in handy, and 2, I'm going to talk about possibly giving up concealment on the commander in favor of something like Fearless Brawler. But you can see that 6.6, it's decent concealment as for a Tier 7 destroyer. It's not fantastic, nor is it terrible. It's just okay. Let's go ahead and talk about her modules. Now, there's no modules to upgrade here, but what I will say is when we're looking here, I believe the stock reload time for this ship, let me think about this, I think it's 5. It should be 5. Yeah, we'll check it, but I'm pretty sure it's 5 second. We've got it down to 4.8 seconds as of now. You can see that the 180 degree turn time of the turrets is pretty colossally is what I wanted to say, but that's not right. It's colossal in being bad. It's like a battleship 180 degree turn time. This is at Tier 7. Now we have actually even taken main battery modification 2 in the 3rd slot. I think otherwise without it you're around 27 seconds. HE shell damage 1,900, AP shell damage 2,500. But these are 130mm guns, and they are pretty sweet. And you saw some nice citadels we were getting in even on some cruisers in yesterday's video. In terms of survivability, when you take survivability expert on your commander, that bumps you up to 17,650. Not too much to mention there. I mean, it makes mention of the AA, which is pretty poor. You'll struggle even against Tier 6 aircraft carriers, so don't count on the AA on this ship. Torpedoes, 92 second reload time. For some reason I was thinking it's over 100, so that's why I started off with the 1. But a 92 second reload time, so with the Adrenaline Rush, you know, you can easily pop this down beneath 90 seconds. Really nice that they have an 8-kilometer torpedo range. They're not something that have like a 4 or 6, sometimes notable amongst more the gunboat Russian destroyers. So this is with that conceal build I'm talking about, you can actually still fire these torpedoes. Even if you give concealment up on the commander, which we'll talk about, you could still fire these torpedoes, but I think you have like a 0.7 kilometer window between detectability and torpedo range. They hit pretty good for 15,100 maximum damage. Okay-ish speed, I guess, for a Tier 7 destroyer, 60 knots. Where a higher tier, if you're facing Tier 9s, then you're going to be not so well off with these torpedoes, I would say. Now, in terms of the gunfire control system, we've actually gone for a main battery build, gun build to an extent in terms of the range on our commander. So that pushes us out past 13.9 kilometers. Otherwise, without it, maybe you're like 12? I should have. Normally what I do is I also pull up the ship on my phone too, just so I can check out the stock range. So I'll just go ahead and pull it up on my phone while we're talking here. Let's see, does it list it here? It should be down here. Yeah, your stock range is 0 because they don't list it there. That's so cool. It should be over here. 11.56. Okay, so I said 12, so just a little beneath 12. So 11.56, but with how well these guns have velocity, 870 meters a second on high explosive and armor piercing, you can be relatively accurate at range when you're firing on enemy ships. So we've built into that. So just know that 11.56 is your standard gun range. Propulsion 43 knots. That's the way the WoW's wiki article reads. This is the fastest tier 7 destroyer. Now that's not taking into account something like Sierra Bravo combat signal 45.2 knots, and then you add 8%. So I will do math on that. So then add 3.6. So 3.6 plus that 45.2. I don't want to tell you wrong and just guess it off my head. 48.8 seconds. And that's not even if you decide to take Swift and Silence. So you could bust up over 50 knots with Leningrad if you so desired to. Not that I recommend, but just know that this is a very fast tier 7 destroyer. And it's definitely worth building into. Now, in terms of her upgrades, for the first slot, I'm going to recommend you take the main armors modification 1. This is going to reduce your risk of main battery and torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated by -20%, improve their survivability by +50%, and reduce the repair time by -20%. So, you have great guns and you have good torpedoes, decent torpedoes, so worth taking that main armaments modification 1. You wouldn't mess with this. You don't have secondaries. Your AA sucks. Magazine modification 1 you wouldn't take. This reduces your ship's magazine detonating by -70%. Take the Juliet Charlie combat signal and it will completely eliminate risk of your ship's magazine detonating. You take that if you're playing something like ranked, randoms, or clan battles. I don't take it in co-op and you don't need it in ops. Moving on, the second slot, there's only really 2 clear winners here. First is the engine room protection. This is going to reduce the risk of your engine and your steering gears becoming incapacitated by -20%. Your repair time for both will also be -20%. Then, on the other hand, if you want to invest into a special upgrade here on the Leningrad, you can take the engine boost modification 1. This is a very good upgrade to take, as I just want to check that I do have the right mic. I do have the right mic. I was a little paranoid that I didn't have the right mic there for a second. Plus 30%, right? So right now your action time is 120 seconds. And if we do the math, yeah, you can add, you'll be over like about 156 seconds is what you'll get. So I do recommend, if you really like this ship, I like it a lot. I'm saving up some coal to buy some ships right now. But otherwise, I would really recommend putting this on Leningrad. And with coupon, you can get for 12,750 coal. So definitely worth it. I usually always wait for these coupons to purchase, just so I save that 4,250 coal, because it's really worth it. So just once a month, pick one of those up. Now the third slot, there's 2 options. The first I'm going to recommend you the most is the main battery modification 2, and that's taking you from that like 27 second 180 degree turn time to the 24.1 second 180 degree turn time. So a destroyer that has battleship 100 turret traverse is very frustrating. So I do really recommend you go for the main battery modification 2. You need it, especially when you're kiting and you're open gun boating. normally, you know, typically on destroyers, if it's like a hybrid, or you would go for the accuracy, I typically would recommend aiming systems modification 1, as it reduces your maximum vertical and horizontal dispersion by probably anywhere between 5 to 9, 10 meters on either one of those, or on both of them. But with that turret traverse, you just really need the main bounty modification 2. So that is what I would recommend here. Others not really worth mentioning. I'm getting messages on my phone. For slots, I would recommend propulsion modification 1. Pretty much in generally speaking, your gunboat DDs have propulsion modification 1, and then if they get access to the 5th slot, they tend to take, I think it's like steering gears. Yeah, steering gears modification 2, so you have better rudder shift time, but you don't have access to a 5th slot. So really, the propulsion modification 1, when you're tied with that engine boost and your speed, you're just constantly accelerating, deaccelerating, and it's really beneficial to have this in juking shots. Most players run this on the destroyers. Now, maybe I'm making a generalization, or I'm speaking in general, but this is much a better way to go. And then if you have access to 5th slot, then that's when you might see that steering gears modification 2 come into play. Then I would recommend taking that in 5th slot for a gunboat style destroyer. Moving along, so we've talked a little bit about these guns already. They do have an 8% chance of starting a fire. Now we can buff that if we want with these 2 combat signals, India X-Ray and Victor Lima. So then we were looking at 9%. Then with Commander, you could bump it up to 10% if you really wanted to. Not that I think that's necessarily worth building into in the Commander, but alas, here you are. Your armor penetration capacity with the high explosive is 22 millimeter. So quite nice, good to have. With the armor piercing, you have really nice AP guns that wreck light cruisers, even the superstructure, battle cruisers, heavy cruisers, you can do decent damage to. Now, if you're facing tier 9s, tier 8s, maybe that slightly becomes a different story. But I'm pretty positive you could still, if they're showing you enough broadside, you could easily Citadel to Edinburgh, the tier 8 British light cruiser, or even Cleveland, American tier 8 light cruiser. So these, just don't sleep on the armor piercing. Use both of them. You kind of see me switching between both of them in yesterday's video as well, so I'll tag that at the end of the video. Just so you can see, the torpedoes, they have a detectability range of 1.2, so I think that's this reaction time of around 7.6 seconds, I think is what I said in yesterday's video. Maybe it was, I think it was 7.6. And then you could get it down if you wanted to build into the speed of the torpedoes. Maybe you get it down to 7.3, something like that. But these are pretty decent for that detectability range. Tied with that 60 knot speed, 60 knot speed's okay. So you can easily do the stealth torpedoing, which is why, one of the reasons why I think when I had built this commander, I kind of invested more into a little bit of that with that in mind. So maybe I would run a different style commander on here, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Keep wanting to get ahead of myself. Depth charges, you get 2 sets of charges, 4 bombs in a charge. That means you only get 8. Maximum damage of 2,400. So these aren't amazing depth charges. They're okay. Yeah, the Americans tend to be better, and I think even the British maybe even get more bombs in a charge. So, and you have a 40-second reload time on them. Consumable-wise, standard for destroyer, 5-second action time, cooldown time of 40 seconds. You have an unlimited number of them. Smoke generator, you get smoke and engine boost, not a heal. Some of the other Russian gunboat style destroyers get the heal, or you can switch between the heal and the smoke generator, but we don't get repair party here. So the smoke generator, I tend to use this more when I feel maybe I'm getting focused a lot. I'm not necessarily able to go dark. I find myself in an unfavorable situation. I need to disengage. It's usually when I'll utilize smoke screen with Leningrad. Otherwise, I'm usually utilizing her range and playing her more as a gunboat style, but able to have access to stealth fire torpedo when I do need to go dark and throw some torpedoes out. as again illustrated in yesterday's video. Action time of 20 seconds, smokescreen dispersion time 85 seconds, so not an American smokescreen. That's more known maybe for closer to that 2-minute dispersion time. Cooldown time 160 seconds, that's over 2 minutes, so you're not going to want to just, you don't waste the smoke screens. Because if you just accidentally, or sorry, not accidentally, but you use it and then you're like, oh, now I wish I really would have had it like a minute and a half later. Well, guess what? You're still having to wait for another minute or a little over a minute for it to come back off cooldown. So just try to use them wisely and play more at that range. Engine boosts, we've talked a little bit about already in connection with the special upgrade that you can pick up in slot 2. Really great to have. Really great just building into the speed of this destroyer overall and the fact that you get up to over 48 knots. Signals wise, what would I run? If I had, well, I mean, if I had this, actually we'll just go ahead and buy one because we can. This helps reduce your preparation and reload time of your consumables. So you can see when we mount that, it goes to 160 to 152 seconds. It goes from 120 to 114 seconds, and this is going to go from 40 to 38. So I typically run this on destroyers always. That's kind of one of the reasons why I'm out of them. So I'm hoping when I open up a lot of super containers, I'll get some more of these before I really buy more. Beyond that, that's really what I would only run unless I'm feeling really cheeky and want to increase my flooding chance, or I want that smoke screen to last longer. These others just aren't worth building into. You have bad AA. And these are typically more something you'd see on a battleship or cruiser, and the fact that you only have a 38-second cooldown time on your damage control party if you take the November Foxtrot. Moving along swiftly to the commander, so I'm just going to show you. This is the route I'm planning with this commander, a 21-point commander. I'll go over the reasons why I have this particular build with Leningrad on this commander right now, as I have this commander trained for Delny. So I'll talk again more about that. Now with Leningrad, I would probably make one change, and instead of taking Conceal, I would be tempted to actually take Fearless Brawler just to get a negative 10% reduction in our main battery reload time. I'll talk about it shortly, but this is what we have on, and as far as a standard randoms build, Leningrad, this is what I would recommend if you don't feel comfortable giving up that Conceal, because if you give up Concealment Expert, it's going to bloom you up to 7.3, now 6.6, so it gives you some a little more safety, I guess is what I would say. But if you want to increase your DPM performance, then just drop Concealment and take Fearless Brawler. But let's just talk about first the bread and butter build, which is pretty much 90, I don't know, maybe I say 95% of destroyers in the game have it. You can do that bread and butter build here on Leningrad for the first 10 points, and we'll talk about that. Pretty much mandatory, at least for the first 3, is you're going to be looking for preventive maintenance. This reduces the risk of your main turrets, torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engine becoming incapacitated. Very helpful to have on more of your gunboat style destroyers here in World of Warships. For a 3-point commander, you're going to take Last Stand. The ship remains partially able to sustain speed and maneuverability with the engine steering gears incapacitated. I needed this yesterday in the game. I had my steering gears briefly incapacitated before I used my DCP when there was some, was it a SCON, dumped torpedoes at us, and I had to avoid them. So just having this is really of a lifeline, and not being dead in the water either if your engine gets knocked out. So really important to have. A 6-point would be that survivability expert. So it's 350 times 7 and boosting up your survivability, and you're going to want that for Leningrad just because of her more gunboat style. It means with gunboat destroyers you tend to trade a bit of your HP for having more of that aggressive at-range playstyle, if you will. Now, when I say that 95% destroyers in World Warships take this bread and butter build, it would include Concealment Expert in terms of the 10 points, but there's freedom to play with this whether you take this or not. If you're not going to take Consumables Expert, what else would I recommend? Then I would say go ahead and pick up Main Battery A Expert, or go ahead and pick up Fearless Brawler. But for the purposes of this, build, I'm just going to say, yes, pick up Consoma Expert if you want this pretty fairly standard build in the game. So this would be a 10-point build. After that, for a 13-point commander, I'd take a Drilling Rush. Your guns are going to be reloading faster, your torpedoes are going to be reloading faster as you lose health. That is how this skill kicks in. So then your guns, right, so they're 4.8 now with the build we have. We could be looking at 4.7, 4.6, 4.5, maybe 4.4, something like that. So really good to have. And then your torpedoes, you know, they're going to start reloading at 90, 88, 86 second reload. Roughly along those lines. After that 13-point build, I would say just go ahead and build into those guns. So this is going to take you from the 5 seconds. I'm going to check it with my fancy calculator. Yeah, so I would say definitely go ahead and pick up this skill. So that drops you from that 5-second reload to a 4.8 second. Technically, it shaves off 0.25 seconds, so like 4.75 seconds, but it doesn't read it like that here in the game. It just goes by the first, what would you say, denominator. So that'd be a 16-point build. You get a little AA damage buff, but it's nothing to brag about. You're taking it for your main battery reload time. And then after that 16-point build, for a 20-point build, take the main battery AA Expert. Again, you only take this from the main battery, not the AA. I mean, yeah, your AA gets a little bit better. So if you're looking at comparing your Leningrad to mine, you know, we've built into, by coincidence, the AA as well. So your AA defense on your destroyer might be something more like 35, 34, 33 AA rating. And it's because these two skills are boosting that up. This extends your main battery firing range from that 11.5 to the 13.9. Super sweet. It's really comfortable range. I try to play more along the 12 to... yeah, around 12, but if it's a hot zone, there's a lot of enemy ships, then playing at that 13 kilometers and back a little bit helps, and then battleships don't really feel so inclined to want to shoot you, whether you're seeing 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s. You know, it's frustrating when you take, you're a battleship player, you take a shot at a 50 knot, 48 knot, destroyer, and your salvo completely misses. Now you gotta wait for your next 30 seconds for your salvo reloads. So typically the battleship player mindset is it's boring to shoot at destroyers. Maybe one of my 9 shells land and I want to do more damage, so then they just ignore you. And you saw that happening in yesterday's video as well, where I think only 2 battleships ever shot at us, maybe 3, but I think it was only 2 or 3 times a battleship shot at us in general. After this, the grease the gears, so this is going to increase your traverse speed by plus 15. So you go from 20 to 29, 20.9 seconds from that 24.1 seconds. So I'm really excited to want to have this on my commander here with how glacially slow, that's the word I was looking for, glacially slow, these torpedoes, the turret traverses here on the Leningrad. Now, sometimes if and a caveat is what you see is maybe something like incoming fire alert as well, but because of the style of this destroyer, I would recommend this as well. Now, I'm trying to remember, I've got some special commanders. Yes, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to who do I have him on? I have him on Delny. I did want to make mention of this, so I'm glad I double checked that while we were recording. So I'm gonna go ahead and move. Oh, it's also this guy too. Yeah, we can use him. He's got 15 points. You have access in the game to 2 commanders that have some enhanced skills. And now you can see the main battery traverse speed goes from plus 15 to plus 20%. And we have another enhanced skill here, where instead of having a negative 30% reduction to risk of modules becoming incapacitated, you have a negative 45% chance. Now don't remember what we have on Kuznetsov, if I even have anything at all. Yeah, so this was, I think this was my Havarovsk build here that I have on Kuznetsov. But with this guy, it's really convenient to have. So let's go ahead and go to Armory. I can show you I think one's available for coal and one's available for doubloons, if memory serves correctly. Could be completely wrong. Yeah, so they're both here. One's for 1,500 doubloons, one's for 35,000 coal. So I would say it's in favor. I was just using that 20-point commander because I had him, and I like using a high point commander, even if it's maybe not the specific skills I might want, but it still works. But in this instance, I would want to train up these two commanders, ideally, to be running here on Leningrad. And this guy is already at 15 points, so that's fantastic. So then now, let's go ahead and I'll just show you the build, I was showing to begin with. Artillery. No, I'm looking, yeah, artillery, yeah. Okay, so again, 24.1 seconds. So now you're going to see that drop in to 20.1 seconds. So we get to shave off a little bit more time with this enhanced skill on this commander. So for me, that's worth running and having this type of commander on here. So this would be a fairly standard build I would recommend on Leningrad. Now, the second build I'm going to recommend is dropping Concealment Expert and picking up the Fearless Brawler skill. So this skill, it gives you another, do we get AA, do we get flak? I need to actually even see if we get flak or not. No, we don't get flak. I didn't think we would for this destroyer. But you get another AA buff, but because we don't have shell explosions flak, we don't get that permanent effect of a +1. But reduces main battery reload time while your ship remains detected by an enemy. So this isn't like standard detectability range like the cruisers have. It's just whenever you're detected, you're going to get a negative 10% reduction in your main battery reload time. Okay. So if, as an example, yeah, let's just go ahead and stick with that. 4.8 seconds. Okay, so then at 4.8, you would be taking off almost 5 seconds. Yeah, so 4.8 minus the 0.48. So 4.3 second reload time, or 4.32 second reload time when Fearless Brawler is activated. So that's quite nice, and I think that that is going to increase your DPM here on the Leningrad overall. So this would be the build I would favor first and foremost on Leningrad if you're comfortable with giving up some of that concealment, being 7.3. Again, you still can stealth torpedo, being that 0.7 kilometer range. Now we can check what the detectability by air. Yeah, so you're going to be detected by air at 3.5 versus 3.1. Something else to kind of keep in mind, but that's pretty fairly standard among, again, destroyer or gunboat. Destroyer gunboats is what I'm trying to say. So this would be option number 1. I would recommend if you're comfortable giving up concealment and you're comfortable playing more of this range gunboat playstyle. If you want to play this more as a gunboat destroyer that leans into the hybrid, then I'm going to say take Concealment Expert. It's still really good. You saw how this helped us yesterday, especially with the Gneisenau, who kind of got us close to the border. Now, granted, we could have just used our smoke if he did decide to push us, hang on one of our rack of torpedoes, which we did in case he did rush us, but he didn't. So you do have that. I'm trying to think if there's really another really great option to go for. I mean, we talked about the swift and silence, right? Maneuverability. Yeah, so it's going to add plus 8%. So that would push you over 50 knots if you're undetected, but you're a, this would be more for Shimakaze. You're a gunboat destroyer who can dabble into the hybrid a little bit, so you're not going to be detected, or you are going to be detected fairly often, is the playstyle of this destroyer. I don't think it's that big of a deal to take Superintendent, 4 smokes for engine boost. You're not really using the smoke so often, as I explained with the playstyle of Leningrad. So I think all in all, this is probably just this build number 1 this build number 2. And then, of course, you can always play with it, right? This is just me giving you my thoughts and opinions, but this is what I would favor most on Leningrad. Yeah, so if you have questions about a skill that I did not go over, please let me know in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and work on, equipping this build. Would I go for Fearless Brawler first? But I really like that range. Probably I'll do that, and then as soon as I get to a 17-point commander, yes. Sorry, 10, 13, 16-point commander, I'll take the main battery in A expert, which we're not too far away. We just need one more. How much elite commander XP do we have? Let's spend a little. And then this and this. So, if you have questions about something I didn't cover, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if you have Leningrad and what you've enjoyed running in terms of your build on the ship. We can discuss below. So, if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you have subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.